we're here for episode 4. We're on fourth episode. Can you believe that?
No, it happened so fast.
It happens very fast. Well, that's what happens when you're enjoying this so much. And we know that as people are joining in, they're enjoying it as well. We have some really cool stuff for them to absorb today. First and foremost, I want to tell a story. You and I have had many conversations over the years, but we had a conversation about 2 months ago about money, as we have so often done. It's one of the
Hmm.
things that led to us starting this podcast. And
Hmm.
in that conversation, among many, many things, uh, I came up with a domain name that I had since forgotten why I bought it. And you were just reminding me why it came up in conversation. Well, because I'd forgotten why I'd bought the darn thing, I said, well, I ought to use it for something. So I was in
Yeah.
conversation with an AI, with Claude actually in this case, and we were thinking, well, let's see if we can figure out a business for this thing. I mean, you got the domain, you might as well be able to come up with it. Now, the domain is super-fluidity.com. Okay, so what are you going to do with that one? What kind of business can you do? Well, after a lot of conversation, it turns out we pretty much invented a new business. And
Hmm.
while I'm not going to give all the details of it, imagine an app or a website that you can go to either get ideas about a business that you can start or bring your own idea and have it evaluated. And by
Love that.
evaluated, I mean having research done to find out how viable it is, how long it'll take to get it going, how much time you're gonna have to put in, how much money you're going to have to put in, what kind of reasonable expectations you should have for it, how much demand do you think there's going to be? I mean, we can research all this stuff. Well, superfluidity.com is actually in the process of being built, and it's going to be able to do exactly that in a very short period of time because now we live in
Yeah.
the AI age where you can move things along quickly.
I love that. Every second video that you see on TikTok, and I'm sure Instagram and Facebook are no different, but it's about a side hustle. Do this to make more money. Everybody is looking for ways that they can make more money. And I think as we see things change with AI, and there will be job losses, let's be honest, that's just what's going to happen. Um, wouldn't it be cool to be able to go to a place and instead of just trying everything under the sun to try and make it work, go there and ask the question like, hey, I want to do something. What should I do?
And like you say, there are plenty of ideas that appear on TikTok or Instagram or anywhere else. None of them tell you don't do this.
That's right. Oh, they're trying to sell you on
Oh,
the
yeah.
idea of doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas this service that I'm going to be putting together, its main purpose is going to tell you not to do A, B, C, D, and E.
Yeah. What you should
Because
do and what you should not do.
yeah, I mean, it's actually the kind of information that you will get if you actually had a friend who knew about the business in some way or knew about the field in some way, who had some expertise and could tell you, oh, well, wait a minute, you got to make sure you watch out for this, and this could be a problem. You don't get that advice from any of the people selling the stuff on TikTok.
No.
But imagine if you had a place where you could get that information.
Absolutely. And is it like dynamic, like as things are changing or whatever, it too will, you know, redo the numbers, reevaluate
Yeah.
things to tell you if it's saturated or not based on what's
And
already
more
happened?
precisely, it's not like we're going to do that across the board for every business opportunity we can come up with because I'm really anticipating it's going to be thousands of business opportunities. It just
Yeah.
isn't time and cost effective to just go through and constantly rework all of them. But what we're going to do is, let's say you become a member of the service, right?
Yeah.
And you want to find out about business X. And business X was something that we investigated 6 months ago. Well, you'll be able to push a button and say, I want to learn more about business X. What's the latest on it? And we'll do a new search on it. We'll do new updating on that one thing that you asked about. So it won't be just on the whole thing across the board. It'll be on the thing that you want to know about.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Which is
That's
really
so
the only way to do
exciting.
it. I mean, you can do it any way you want, but I think you should do it based on what the person that you're providing the service to needs.
Yeah, what they're looking to find.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
more to come, but
Exciting.
yeah, interesting how a conversation you and I had led to something parallel, but quite different.
Yeah. Hey, it's always working out.
It's always working out. So, okay, we've got more questions to work
Ooh.
on this show. So let's work on the very first question. And we went over them before the show together. I'm going to take them a little bit out of order, okay?
Okay.
Because there was one that jumped out of my at me when you and I were talking about it. And that is, how much do you save monthly if you're trying to save to a particular goal? You have something in mind that you're trying to reach for. How much should you put aside in order to get there?
Whew. It's such a wild question because there isn't, in my opinion, one answer.
Hmm.
And I know that this is frustrating for people to hear because they just want one answer. But it depends on a couple of things, like what is your goal and what can you do?
Hmm.
Because, it's great to say I have a goal of, paying off my house in the next 5 years, and maybe that's an extra $120,000 a year on your mortgage. Ask me how I know these numbers.
How do you know these numbers, Jodie Lynn?
Because I was looking at it. We're building a house soon, and I was thinking about that. If we were to, pay off our house in, 5 years, what would that take extra? Okay, like it's about if we were to pay it off in 4 years, it'd be $120,000 a year extra towards the
Hmm.
mortgage. Okay, wonderful. Now that's a great goal. Is it attainable?
Yeah, well, first of all, you better have the income, otherwise you're in trouble.
Well, yeah, if you don't have the income, then you can, and this is I think the thing that people find frustrating about the law of attraction, to be honest,
Mm.
is like, oh, well, I can have a goal of anything. And yes, absolutely you can. And you should have giant goals and you should be reaching for the stars. Worst case you hit the barn. I love that. That's great. And there's also one of my bosses way back in the day when I used to be in safety. He said he said that you'll overestimate what you can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what you'll be able to accomplish in 5 or 10 years.
That's a very good point.
And it's true. We think about that. So if you set this crazy goal, if I was to set this goal that I'm going to put an extra $120,000 on my mortgage every year, just as an example. Okay, have I ever done that before? Have I ever saved $120,000 in 1 year? No, I have not. I have not. Okay, so that's something new for me. So, is it possible with my income where it's at? Uh, ish, but it would be really tight.
Mm.
So, is it realistic? And you know what? This used to really piss me off when my husband used to say he's a realist, because I'm an optimist and I am a possibilities person, and he's a realist. But at some point, you have to be real with yourself because what will happen is you'll set this large, crazy goal and go towards it. And, the first week, the first month, the first 2 months, first 3 months, when you're not hitting it, you're kind of chipping away at your own confidence and your own belief that it is possible. So we need to start somewhere that's a little uncomfortable but doable so that we can have those wins. So if you're not saving anything right now and you want to save for your future or for a car or a house or whatever it is, looking at your budget and determining what can I realistically do and setting that number and maybe stretching it a little bit from there. Can I do $100 more? Can I do $50 more? Can I do $25 more? Whatever it is. And you get into that habit, and then you start to see how it compounds, and you get excited about that, and you keep going. And so keep revitalizing your goal or your a monthly amount that you're putting away as it gets comfortable, you up it just a little bit more. You're not going to notice the $25. You won't. But it will make a big difference in the long run.
And
So
I'm
that's where
glad you
I'd start.
mentioned that at that level at $25, because I mean, 100,000, as soon as you said 120,000, I can just imagine people's eyes glazing over because there are going to be a lot of people who don't have income at that level. They just wouldn't be able to pull it off.
That's
Uh,
right.
so what if their income is like, 40,000 or something like that? Well,
Yeah,
you're in a different ballpark, but the same principles apply. It's
the
just
same
you
principles.
just have to scale it in a way that works to what your income's actually doing.
100%. And it it all grows. It's growing because obviously you're going to invest this money, even if it's in a savings account and it's only growing by 0.5%, it's still growing a little bit. And that you looking at your account and seeing that, oh, I had $0 in there last year and now I have 500, it does something for your belief system. I did it. I can do this. I'm moving forward. You get excited about it. And then you can kind of incrementally increase that number and build your belief system. I'm good at saving money.
It's interesting that you talk about that because many years ago, when I was in my 20s, I was a bank teller.
Oh,
I was a bank teller. And I was what they called a floating teller, which meant that I would work at different branches of the bank, depending on where I was needed on any given day. And
mhm.
whenever I traveled to a different branch, I would get mileage for my driving to wherever that branch was. The mileage was calculated from the main office. Well, I actually didn't live near the main office, so some of them were fairly close to me that I'd earned pretty good mileage on. So that was kind of cool. But I would drive to the bank, do the job, and do that every single day, 5 days a week. And then as I got my paycheck at the end of the week, I also got a mileage reimbursement. And I took that mileage reimbursement and put it into a savings account. And I
Hmm.
did that for a year.
Yeah.
And now, of course, the mileage is about paying for my car expenses. Well, I kind of had a secret there. I had a banged up car that wasn't going to last long anyway. It's not
But it
like I
didn't
was getting a lot of
matter.
value. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a pretty poor car, but it worked and it didn't break down or anything. It was on its last legs. It probably had another 30,000 miles on, something like that. But I got the 30,000 out of it. There was no real cost involved because I was going to have to replace it anyway. So literally, other than my gas costs, I was pretty much just putting money away. I had to dig into my regular income to pay for gas, so there was a little bit of trade-off there.
Yeah.
But most of it was just going right toward this savings plan. And it was astonishing how quickly it grew. Now, the numbers were very, very small compared to what we're talking about, because this is 1980.
Yeah.
So, the purchasing power was smaller, the earning power was smaller, everything was smaller. So the numbers are a lot smaller, but the principle still played out. And what I ended up doing with that money, I ended up doing a couple things. One of them was I bought myself a brand new electric guitar. And not just any electric guitar, it was a
Yeah.
Fender Stratocaster. This was a high-end
Ooh,
guitar.
yeah.
At that time, it was about $500. Now it's probably around $1,500, $2,000 to buy something like that. I got that
Yeah.
off of mileage payments.
Crazy. Right? And I think, something that just tweaked in my brain when we're having this conversation is like you said it's a smaller number. Some people can't do the amount that I popped out of my head. And you know what? A lot of people stop there. Oh, I can't save $1,000 a month. I can't save 10% of my income. So why even bother trying?
Why
I'm
try?
pooped. Um, you can't get stuck there because there is something that you can do. And the more that you build that belief, the more that you will continue to build the belief in each either direction. Like if you believe that you can't save and there's no way that you can save, well, then you're going to prove yourself right. But if you just took even $10, it seems insignificant, but what you're doing is you're telling the universe, this is my intention to have this, and having an intention of where this money is going. Rainy day fund. Actually, one of my girls in my coaching program, she calls it her Serenity Fund. Because it gives her a peace and serenity, knowing that
Yeah.
she's got an extra $5,000 in an account somewhere just in case, shit hits the fan or whatever. So knowing where that money is going, why it's important to you, and taking those steps. It's just like a kid when they learn to walk for the first time. They don't go walk in a half marathon. No, they take one step and they fall down. And then they get back up and they take another couple steps. And eventually, over time, you see them zooming all over the place. But it doesn't happen like the first day that they start to walk. And the same with savings.
By the way, just to give people listening an idea of the scale involved, I mentioned that it was not the only thing I bought. I actually got a down payment on a car, and so it actually did go toward the car. But
See?
I did buy that guitar because I was a musician. I'm back to being a musician again. But at that point, I wanted to be a guitarist. And when I bought the guitar, like I said, I bought it with mileage money, and the mileage money was basically on the order of $1.50 to $2 per bank visit. So every time I
Mm,
went to a bank to work, I was getting $1.50 to $2. Well, you can do the math. What does it take to get to $500? And that was just part of the mileage money I piled up.
yeah. It takes some time.
It takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
but it's amazing you actually get there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it happens. And something else that you mentioned that I wanted to talk about too is how you were paying for something and you just kept paying for something. I see that all the time. We have space for a $500 car payment, and
Hmm.
then we pay off the car. If you don't make a plan for that money is gone.
Yes.
And you'll look back in a year from now and be like, I paid for a $500 car payment for all those years, and then I stopped paying it, and I don't have an extra $500 in savings because we didn't set the intention to continue to save it. And it's crazy. When I was a kid, I was 17 years old and I rolled my parents' vehicle.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was not great. Anyway, I was in a
Embarrassing,
lot of
actually.
trouble.
Not
Yeah.
not to mention dangerous.
Very dangerous. Yes, yes. If I wasn't wearing my seatbelt, they said I wouldn't be here. So,
Wow.
I was dumb and driving too fast on a gravel road than what I should have been. Anyway, my dad made the executive decision that instead of letting the insurance company write off the vehicle, they were gonna write it off or we could repair it, that he would repair it with his own money because he knew that when you're young and you get one accident, you already have high insurance costs, and then you get into an accident and the insurance cost goes up. And sometimes they give you a little bit of a break for your first accident, but if you get into a second accident at any point in time, anytime soon, you're, up the creek without a paddle. So he was trying to protect me because I was young and inevitably I would probably get into another accident at some point, and he didn't want me to have, really high cost of insurance. So he decided to pay for it out of pocket, which is very sweet of him. And he didn't have the money up front, so he took out a loan. And so he took out a loan and he paid the loan and I heard about that for a long time. Like I heard about, oh, still paying off your loan for your car. Not even your car, it was my mom's car.
No.
Like still paying off your loan. Like, and when it came down to the end, final payment to your loan. Like my dad is so sweet. But he made his point. I mean, I was very grateful. I am very grateful. I knew that made a huge difference for me. I'm very grateful for it. And what I didn't know until later on in life is that when he finished the loan, somehow his bank was set up with his, it was like an automatic payment off of his check
Hmm.
somehow or whatever. Anyway, so he had this couple $100 payment for this loan for the car repairs coming off, and then the loan was done, but he never stopped the contribution. So
Oh.
he just called them and said, just put it in this account. And he had another savings account, and so they diverted the funds there, and he started paying that. And before he knew it, he had a bunch of money sitting in that account. He just kept paying it as if he still had the loan. So it works that way.
There's the principle that you just talked about.
Hmm.
Continuing the habitual pattern that you already have
Yeah,
now to your benefit, because once you've got the loan paid off, it's all gravy at that point if you keep doing it, but only if you
100%.
keep doing it.
Yep. And you'll find, or what I found at least, is when you stop making the payment and then you look back, at least in a year from now, you're looking back, you one, don't have the money, two, don't know how you afforded the payment. Like couldn't
Mm.
imagine paying that $500 towards the savings account now. It feels way too tight. Whereas before it just seemed easy. It's just what you did.
And we've talked about this before. The story that I told on the other podcast that we've done, the LOA Today podcast, is the story of how uh, my business crashed in 2008 with the 2008 financial crisis. By 2012, I started the podcast because I needed help in figuring out how to turn things around because things had not turned around.
Right?
Learned about the law of attraction, which was great. Got a lot of great friends, including yourself. That was also great too. But I had this huge pile of debt I still had to work down that came about because of losing the business. I mean, just because you lose the business doesn't mean life stops and the expenses stop. So we went pretty deep in debt.
Mhm.
And I managed to pay it down a little at a time, but it was credit card debt. That's expensive debt. It
It
just
is.
takes a while. And the interest rates weren't as high as they are now, thank goodness. They were actually lower.
Yeah.
So it made it possible. But even so, it was paying down really, really slowly. And then the pandemic comes along. And I was still in debt when the pandemic started. And I was
Mhm.
out of debt 1 year later. And I said, how the hell did I do this? Now, I keep records. Not many people keep financial records. That's something that I acquired from my dad. My dad was a Depression era kid, and so money was really, really valuable, and you had to, account for it. My dad used to do paper spreadsheets back before computers were around. He used to manually do spreadsheets on the family
Yeah.
finances. That's
Yeah.
the level, and I would watch him do this because I was the eldest son, so of course I was supposed to watch this stuff. I have no idea why, but nevertheless, I was supposed to watch this stuff. And so I kind of absorbed the same thing. Like, okay, so I keep financial records to this day. I had a very good idea of where the money had come from to pay it down. Now I knew I got some really big help. It was in a sad form. My mom passed, and when my mom passed, I got some estate money out of that. That covered about half of it.
Yeah.
And I could see how I had done other things, like there'd been business improvements and so forth. So I could see where about another 30% came from. There was 20% I couldn't account for.
Hmm.
And it took a while, but I finally realized it's because it was the pandemic and we couldn't go anywhere. We were in lockdown, so I couldn't go out and spend money. That was
Hmm.
the other 20%. And I thought to myself, 20%? It's just like going to restaurants or whatever. Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing how that stuff adds up.
100%. And how we're so unaware
Yeah,
of where it's going. Even like you were saying, you're tracking like every single line item. And obviously you didn't have, I would assume you didn't have a spending problem when it came to eating out because you're
right.
watching all of your numbers and
Yeah.
you're budgeting everything. So the amount that you were spending, you felt fine about. And when you started to collect all of it instead of spending it on eating out and putting it towards debt, it made a huge difference.
And the thing that was really astonishing is there is no financial category for money not spent.
Yeah.
So you can't look up, well, where did this income come from?
Yeah.
Where did what is it that, I'm spending money on that I'm not spending money on anymore? And that's, of course, what clicked in my mind. Wait a minute, there's nothing recorded on that. How would I know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to kind of like sit back and think like, oh, we've been in lockdown. We can't go to restaurants. We can't do day trips anymore. We can't do all these different things that we used to do. We can't do the vacations for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And that's where all the money came from. And it was a lot of money. It was
Yeah.
a pile of money.
Absolutely. I think we
And
spend a lot of money on a lot of things.
and it was during the first year of the pandemic when everybody's in financial distress, our business income was way down, and I still paid it off
You still paid it off.
in the middle of the pandemic when we're in lockdown.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, I think it's so interesting. When I was heavy into debt repayment, what I found was that I couldn't see the money that was gone
Mm,
because, if you're saving money and you're saving it in your account, you can watch it build, and
mm.
that is a gratifying feeling. But when you're paying down debt, it goes out of your account into the debt.
That's right.
And the number goes lower, but for some reason, even though I could see that the number was going lower, it didn't feel as good as watching it accumulate in my account. It just still felt like there's no money. Like, what did I do with all of my money? Where has it gone? The one thing that worked for me, because I'm a visual person, I started mapping out my net worth. And this is something that I do for my clients and that I've done for myself, where you have the assets and liabilities on two sides of the column there, so you can see your total net worth. And when I put it on paper like that, and I redid it every single month, sometimes I do it a couple of times a month, depending on because I work 100% commission. So if I'd have some big checks or whatever, I'd put more money towards debt and stuff. So anytime that I put big, lump sums onto my debt, I would traditionally update this net worth sheet. And that got me fired up. Seeing my net worth, my total net worth going from a negative number to a positive number,
Oh, that's
I was
huge.
like, whoo, this is exciting.
Yeah.
I like this direction. But just looking at the balance of what I owed on my credit card, that didn't make me feel any better because it was like, why do I still owe so much money?
Well, And again, it comes down to what it is that does make you feel better. I think it's what you're tapping into. I mean, in
Yeah.
my case, I think I was carrying debt on four different credit cards
Yep.
that I was paying down, maybe in five, I'm not sure. And so each time that I got one down to zero, that was like, oh, this is exciting. Now, it didn't last real long,
Yeah.
but it was exciting and it gave me motivation to go for the next one. So each time that I paid off another one, paid off another one. But the only thing that wasn't exciting about the whole thing is I would try to get my ex-wife excited about it because we were married at the time and she wouldn't get all that excited. That was kind of disappointing. But other than that, it was great.
Yeah.
So my point is, it made me excited. That's why it was good for me to focus on. But if that didn't make me excited, I needed to have something to focus on. That's what you found. You found something else to focus on, the net worth, which is
Yeah.
probably even a better thing to focus on anyway.
Yeah. You got to find a way that it feels good and it doesn't feel like you've imprisoned yourself,
Yes.
literally. Like, oh, I can't do anything because I'm putting all my money towards debt and savings or debt. Like it just feels like a hopeless road and you won't continue because it feels so uncomfortable.
Since we're talking about debt, I'm going to bring up something else that my friend Joel, also a co-host on the LOA Today program, that he told me about. Now, I don't know. I think you know Joel's story, but I'm going to reiterate it here because listeners of this podcast probably don't know about it. Joel, in his 20s, had his problems made mine look weak and mild by comparison because he was a gambling addict. And not only was he a gambling addict, but his father ran an insurance business and was expected to follow in his father's footsteps, which was the last thing he wanted to do. The idea of sitting in an office and just running numbers on insurance policies was pretty close to death as far as Joel was concerned.
Yeah.
So he did what any gambling addict would do. He stole money from the business and ran to Las Vegas.
Great.
And he lost it all.
Oh,
And part of the story is he ends up living behind the strip, eating out of dumpsters and getting beaten up by other guys who'd also lost all their money. So it was a pretty miserable experience. And there's a whole, if you want to read the whole story, he wrote a book called The Bench that literally tells the whole story. And it's an excellent read. It's definitely worth it. But I bring this up to mention what happened afterward. Because after he, first of all, got out of Las Vegas, he ended up getting arrested because he stole money from his parents' business. He ends up going to jail, gets out of jail. He's now a convicted felon. He has no future. He has nothing going for him. He's literally thinking about killing himself. He actually had a day where he sat on a bench with a gun in his hand trying to make a decision. And he ended up deciding to live, although he couldn't really figure out why. But for whatever reason, he was pulled in that direction. And then from that point on, he talks about how he never had choices. It was always just one choice. There was only one option available to him. Like he needed to have work. There was only one. There was one restaurant out of all the restaurants now he lived in a tourist area of Florida. It was the only restaurant that was willing to consider hiring him, and only because they couldn't get anybody else that day. I mean, it was the only option. And then he took that job and he's waiting tables for a bit. And that leads to the next only option. It's like one only option after another. So he kind
yeah.
of got used to doing only options because that's all he had was just only options, only just
Yeah.
one option. That was it. Well, at one point, of course, he'd also gone into debt to fund the gambling addiction, right? So not
Of course.
only did he have to pay by going to jail, he also had all this debt. There's this huge amount of debt. He could not possibly pay it all off. And so the collection agencies come after him, like, hey, we want to start collecting money from you. He says, I don't know how to tell you this. I'm a convicted felon. I just got out of jail. I got no money at all. I don't even have income yet. This is before he got that first restaurant job. He says, I got nothing. So you try to collect all you want, but there's nothing to collect. I am stone broke. And so they tried to negotiate with him, which I thought was interesting. But they did try to negotiate. I'm not sure how you negotiate with somebody who has no money, but nevertheless, they did try to do that.
Yep.
And what he learned through that process is you can actually negotiate a lot of debt away,
You can.
like a lot of it, like
You
all of the
can.
interest, like some of the principal.
A
And
lot of the
so
principal.
And
Yeah.
so he ended up, I mean, I don't know what the exact numbers were. I think it was something like 250, $300,000 worth of debt. He ended up paying something like 25 to 50,000 of it.
Hmm.
I mean, That's astonishing. And
It
it's the
is
last thing
astonishing.
anybody thinks about when they're in the middle of a bad debt problem. Like I got, how about somebody, how many people have college tuition debt right now?
A lot, probably.
A lot, a huge, especially here in the US.
Yeah.
There's like massive numbers of it. And
Huh.
it's overwhelming. And if they're recently graduated, in many cases, they can't get jobs. So they're
Hmm.
going to be in exactly the mindset that you're talking about.
Hmm.
Mindset that says, what's the point?
Hmm.
Save? Are you kidding? There's just no point to it at all. I got this massive debt problem here.
Yes.
And to be fair, with college debt, it's much harder to get the lender to cut it back.
Absolutely. And some of it's tied to the government sometimes, and like even the traditional routes of like bankruptcy or consumer proposal, at least here in Canada, they don't like including government debt at all. Like
Mhm.
they don't want to do that. So, your student loan, a lot of times they won't touch it. I know it's not a hard and fast absolute rule, but they don't like that
Yeah.
at all. Yeah. So it's interesting because we have such uh difficult attachment to debt. There's a lot of emotion there, like a lot about being a good person and being responsible and like meeting our commitments as a woman or a man. Like we put a lot of meaning and stories behind the debt. And the more that I learned about the financial system and our currency and how money is created and stuff, I was able to kind of separate those two things, which I needed to. And I think people need to do a better job. And I'm not saying just walk away from all your debt and be like, haha, bank, come after me. Yeah, I mean, that's probably not the best idea either. But being, in a cold sweat and panicking and fe beating yourself up and constantly feeling like you're less than because you have debt, that is also really taxing for you and not absolutely true. I mean, lots of people go through problems where they can't pay for their debt, and money's pretty illusionary. So they typed in the digits when they gave it to you. So I feel less bad about not giving them 100%, but it's negotiable, especially when it's sold to a creditor because they're selling it for pennies on the dollar. So they're going to be aggressive and they're going to try and get as much as they can from you, but there's a lot of negotiation. And I know exactly what it was Joel, right?
Hmm.
What Joel was saying, like when my ex and I, we bought a house at the, right before the crash in 2008, and then, when we broke up, it was a few years later and everything was in the dumps. And, I always say it like, my relationship didn't. The lake died. Like we lived on
There's a
a
whole story
lake.
there, by the
Yeah,
way, folks. There's
yeah.
a huge story about the lake dying.
Oh yeah, there's a huge story. Everything died. And so when that relationship dissolved, I didn't really have much choices. He didn't want to take on the house, and he wouldn't qualify for it. We didn't think he'd qualify for it. He didn't want to ask for help to qualify for it. We lived right next to his parents, so I didn't want to stay there. It was very uncomfortable for me. I wasn't welcome anymore. I needed to leave. So I had to go through consumer proposal, which is one step above bankruptcy, if you will, in terms of like the way that they class it.
Mhm.
But the only way that they'll do it with a consumer proposal is any credit cards that you have to include. You can't be like, I like this credit card because it has points, so I want to keep it. I don't, they don't like that. So they want you to wrap all that stuff in. Typically, anything that has an asset like a house or a car, you don't wrap in. But that was the whole point of me going through it is that I had this huge mortgage that I was going to be sued for as soon as we foreclosed. I couldn't stay there anymore. I couldn't be there anymore, and there was nothing we could do. The house was worth about half of what we owed on it. So
Mhm.
there's no way we could sell it. I wouldn't qualify for the payment of the shortfall. Like we were really backed into a corner. And I say we, because both me and my ex were backed into a corner, but we were in opposite ends of the building. He
Mhm.
against that corner, me against this corner. Like we were completely separated and not talking. Like, and as much as I tried to help things, that wasn't really, in my opinion, how it was taken on that side of things. He did not want to help the situation
Got it.
whatsoever. But when I went to see the professionals eventually, I don't think I've ever told this story on this podcast, and I'm definitely not because we're only the fourth episode in. But the I might have told it on LOA today, but I'll tell it now because it's funny. Because where do you go when you're backed into a corner and you've got all this
Mm.
debt and you're feeling really ashamed or whatever? I went to my dad and I was like, "So what do I do?" And he's like, "You should ask the bank what happens if you stop paying your mortgage." Okay, that's a great first step. Okay, awesome, right? So I called the bank to talk to them. They don't want to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, great, Dad. Nobody wants to talk to me. And he's like, okay, well, he's a client at the same bank. And he's an older man, so he's got money there and whatever. So he's like, I can get an appointment with the branch manager.
Aha.
Okay, great. So he books the appointment with the branch manager. We go together. We literally go inside her office, close the door, and he looks at me and says, "Here's Jody." And she's like, "What?" He's like, "We're not here for me today. We're here for her." And now she was sitting locked, not, I was gonna say locked in a room, nowhere to go. She could leave at any point, obviously, but she didn't want to, upset my dad.
Right.
So she told me, I said, what's gonna happen when I don't pay my mortgage payment? What happens? And she said, well, eventually, after a couple of missed payments, they'll start the foreclosure process. And the foreclosure process takes a little bit, but eventually they kick you out of your home and then they basically try and sue you for the money. And I'm like, okay, gr great. So what do I do now? Where do you go from here? And she's like, well, you could, try and assume the mortgage. That was impossible. I didn't want to live there also. He could try and assume the mortgage. He would not talk to me. I couldn't even get him to relinquish himself from my car insurance. So taking on a house is not what was going to happen here. So I'm like, hey, not those options. And she's like, bankruptcy. Okay, that feels really gross. And then she said, you know what? I didn't say this. I'm like, okay. I leaned in. Okay. She said, don't leave any of your money here because they will take everything you have, whether it's an investment account or, your checking account or whatever. She's like, go open a new bank today and move all of your money over there. She's like, I'm not supposed to tell you that. And I said, okay, I didn't hear that from you. Great. So I got a little bit of information and then I just started calling around to find out about bankruptcies because I didn't know anything about bankruptcy at the time. And where do you call? Like, who do you call? There's no bankruptcy hotline. Like, I don't know who to call, who to talk to about this stuff. And everything happens for a reason. So, I mean, obviously, the universe guided me to this one company and this one lady in particular. Her name was Marcy. And she said, come on in, come sit down. And she did everything to help me, explained how things worked, explained why bankruptcy wasn't the greatest option for me, that consumer proposal was. And, you start out by doing a budget and stuff. And I'm a very like conservative individual. And I'm not trying to take advantage of anybody. That wasn't what I was trying to do. So I'm like doing my budget. I live with my brother, so rent $200. Like I put a budget together that said that my budget was like $500. And she literally looked at it and was like, Jody, seriously, you're not going to live with your brother forever. And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, so put a reasonable amount of rent on there. Like right now, you're, getting a deal living with your brother, but I don't think you're going to be there for the next 5 years while you pay this off. And I said, probably not. And she said, okay, so rent is about this average. So put that number. And she's like, you smoke? And I was like, yeah, I do. And she's like, why isn't that in your budget? And I'm like, well, no. She's like, okay, we'll put like, $500 for smoking in there. She's like, you drive. And like, she padded my budget in ways that I never would have, which with that context, that's what they look at what you can afford for a payment. And because me and my ex weren't communicating, we weren't doing this together, we were no longer together and no longer speaking. Actually, the way that it happened, funny, we broke up like a week before Christmas.
Mm.
And no, a couple of days before Christmas. So there's like a week before the new year, and on the first was our mortgage payment. So I had said to him, I will put money into this account. And I think the account was a joint account that we both had access to. I said, I'll put half the mortgage payment into there. and you put half the mortgage payment into there, and we'll buy ourselves another month so that we can figure this out. Like it's the holidays, nobody's working, and like, what are we gonna do? Like the bank doesn't want to talk to you on Christmas Eve. Like, let's give ourselves some more time. And in that short week and a half-ish time, that's when I went to the bank with my dad. That's when I started talking to this Marcy lady. I got a new bank account. I rerouted all of my accounts. I started taking cash out of my old bank account and putting it in my sock drawer because I just thought that the bank could just steal money from anywhere. And I thought they'll never find it in here. So I put it in my sock drawer. And it was New Year's Eve. My ex texted me and said, I won't be giving you the mortgage payment. Okay, great. We're going into foreclosure. This
Yeah,
is
right.
awesome. Like, Happy New Year, guys. Like,
Mm.
okay, I'm pulling the rest of my money out of that account, and this is gonna bounce tomorrow, and like we're off to the races. And so because we didn't do things together with the consumer proposal, they made me put everything against me. So the $350,000 mortgage, all against me
Mm.
for the consumer proposal. I had a couple of credit cards and stuff like that. And then I had a car that was underwater, meaning like it was worth less than what I owed on it by a large margin. I owed $20,000 and it was worth maybe 10. Just
Mm.
a vehicle rolled into a vehicle, some bad decisions that I had made. So I was like, might as well get rid of this one. Like if I'm gonna mess things up, I might as well like clean this slate, like just be done with all of it. So I think it was around $450,000
Wow.
of total debt. And my payout was $26,000 that I had to pay back.
Wow.
Yeah, 100%. So there was the negotiation in there. And I mean, obviously, there was the emotion of feeling bad, of doing this, and, what you perceive people think or feel about the process of going through that. But it was a very eye-opening journey, that's for sure. There's options even when you don't know or you don't think that there's options. There's always a way. Always a way.
I don't know what they're called in Canada. In the US, what you're describing is called a credit counselor.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's actually an entire field. There are a lot of dishonest people in that field,
I
but there
bet.
are some honest ones too.
Yep.
You do have to do a little research to find out which is which, but it's also not really hard to figure out which is which because the ones that are the dishonest ones are the ones who want you to put a bunch of money into some account for them. It's pretty
Yes.
straightforward, so you want to look for somebody who's not asking you to put up a bunch of money. If you,
Yes.
and there are plenty of credit counselors who are exactly like that.
Yep.
My brother's gone through something like that. I don't know all the details of it, but essentially the same kind of thing. And it's important, even if you have college loans, you can still go to a credit counselor. The
Mhm.
settlement method is going to be different. The way it gets approached is going to be different, but the credit counselor still can help you.
Yeah.
That's what they're in business to do.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, what I found at least is with my experience, I got all the information before I signed anything or I gave any money up. So you might as well go get the information and find out. Too often, people just bury their heads in the sand because they're scared of what they might uncover or that they have this fear that it's going to be worse than it really is. Well, I mean, in my scenario, at least, I mean, the only way it could get worse is if they sued me, which I knew that was coming. So I needed to learn, how do I protect myself from being sued for $350,000? Like, what do I do in
And think
that
about the
scenario?
person who's the credit counselor. The credit counselor is in business. They're
Yeah.
in business to make money. How are you going to make
Yeah.
money out of that? Well,
Yeah.
the only way you can make money is if you're saving your client a bunch of money. That's the only way to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we know walking in the door, we don't know how much it's going to be, but we know walking in the door, they're going to save you some money. Otherwise, they can't stay in business.
Yeah.
To me,
Yep.
that's like the most reassuring thing of all. I mean, yeah, I feel miserable. Yeah, I feel really inferior. Like I'm so irresponsible and all this other kind of stuff. But in terms of the reasoning and the justification or non-justification for seeing a credit counselor, if you know going in the door that their incentive is to make money by helping you cut down how much money you owe, that's got to help you go through the door.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's it's so funny how our brain plays tricks on us.
Yeah.
Makes it larger than it really is or more scary than it really is. You just got to get the information and then find a way forward.
One of the reasons that you and I used to do the other podcast together is it was originally about the law of attraction. Law of attraction, we've made reference to it a few times. The gist of the idea is what you focus on, you tend to get more of.
Mhm.
And it works both with the positive and with the negative.
Exactly.
So when you keep focusing more and more on how you have all this debt and you can't get out of debt, you're going to get more debt.
Yep.
That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
This is an abundant universe. That is a form of abundance. It's not the kind we normally think about, but it is
Yeah.
an abundance of debt.
Yeah. And abundance is just more of.
It's just more of. That's all it
So,
is.
yeah, that's
So,
it.
so you can flip it around. You can make it an abundance of wealth or an abundance of success or whatever it is you want to get, but you
Yeah.
have to change your mindset to do that.
100%.
And changing the mindset, I don't know why it is, but it's hard. I mean, I do know why. I know what some of the science has been able to tell us a lot of stuff. Neuroscience has told us a lot of stuff. Psychologists have told us a lot of stuff. The gurus have told us a lot of stuff. The psychics have told there's been a lot of stuff about
Yeah.
why this all happens. But even so, I mean, I studied this for 14 years doing the other podcast. It's still amazing to me
Yeah.
how challenging it is to make the change.
Yes.
Now, there is a dirty little secret. Despite how challenging it is, you can do it anyway.
You can do it anyway. And I think what is illusionary in our society today is that things like happen like this very quickly,
Mm.
and that it should be one and done,
Yeah.
like one and done. But that's not how things work. I have always seen it, and I downloaded this in through my channel when I was developing the More program for abundance consciousness, that everything happens in a circular motion, moving upwards. Think of a spiral, like spiral dynamics.
Hmm.
I studied spiral dynamics after I started channeling and downloading this information because I was like, what is this spiral? Very similar to abundance consciousness. Um, but the philosophy that I came to understand is that it's not a one and done thing because we are constantly shifting and moving. And a lot of people will run up against the same problem and say, how am I here again? How am I dealing with this again? You're not. You're different. Your environment's different. Everything about it is different. Your belief systems are even different at this time. It's just an opportunity to take that, ball down the field a little bit further, to go deeper into the understanding of yourself and of the world that we live within. It's not the same when you run into the problem a second time. You're different, and acknowledging that, how different you are, and seeing, okay, I can get a little more juice out of this lemon to make a little more lemonade.
That's a challenging thing to do, but it's a good thing to do. I love
Mhm.
that you bring that up because it does seem when you're in the midst of it, when you're in the middle of that really horrible time financially, it does seem you're never making any progress. It really
Yeah.
does seem that. And you can even find ways to trick your mind into thinking that you're making progress. And then after you've tricked your mind, then you go right back to, yeah, but I'm not making any progress because that's the way the mind works.
Yeah.
So we end up stuck or seemingly stuck on that one thing. What you're reminding us of is even when we feel like we're stuck, we're not actually stuck. We've actually made progress, but we're just not recognizing it.
100%.
And I'll give you an example that came out of a conversation, a phone conversation I had with a friend just a couple of days ago, because she's going through some stuff. Her stuff is not financially related; it's more having to do with health and physical stuff. But nevertheless, she was facing the same problem. She basically was saying, I'm so sick of being in this place where I can't get better. I want to have my life back again. I'm so tired of this. What's it going to take? I mean, I keep doing, and she works really hard. She has done a lot of the work, the work as it's known. She's done a ton of the work, both mental, physical, spiritual, energetic. She's done it all. And she still feels like that she's not making the progress.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of every conversation that she and I have, we have a little thing that we do. We say, okay, let's identify one thing that we're proud of that has happened in the last 24 hours.
Ooh.
So I identified my thing. I came up with it pretty quickly. Then it was her turn. And she's sitting there, humming and hawing, and just can't think of anything. Now, what was really interesting was that 10 minutes before, she had told me, now, again, she has these health issues. She's got severe back pain. It's very debilitating. She told me how she went to this family event, her family, extended family, and she was able to get up and play badminton. She was able to play cornhole. She was able to do physical things that had been pretty much unavailable to her. And she was afraid that she was going to pay for it the next day. Well, the next day, she actually felt good, like not good in terms of everything felt great, but she didn't feel
Right.
extra pain.
Yeah.
But 10 minutes later, she'd forgotten that. So I
Mm,
had to point out to her, here is the thing that you can feel proud about. And as soon as I mentioned, she says, "Oh, yes, of course. Thank you." Because when your mind is shut down, you don't even remember that's there.
yeah.
And when somebody brings it to your attention, "Oh, yes, I was just talking about that 10 minutes ago."
That's right. Well, and even the way that our brain is designed with the reticular activator, to focus on the things that we want it to focus on. If we're focused on seeing how nothing is getting better, your brain goes, okay, ding, 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 ding. Not better, 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 not better. Like that's all that you see. It's a program in your brain. You've told your program, your AI bot inside here, the signal to go look for the signal that this isn't working. I don't have enough money. I'm not healed. I'm not moving. I'm not progressing, whatever it is. So now we have to do the opposite of, okay, we have to work overtime to build the muscle to get our reticular activator to start recognizing the things that we want it to recognize. Oh, no, no, no. See? I like to use lots of like commotion, like and emotion, like movement and like woohoo, yippee, like when I notice things. And I learned this from, I can't remember her last name, Katie. Her name is Katie something. And don't ask me who. It was a book that I read, and she was talking about how it, like wakes up the brain to pay attention. Ooh, something like when we have that visceral big reaction, our brain stops and goes, "What's happening? What's going on? I should know about what's going on. I should pay attention here." So if we were to make a big deal about the smallest of things, I got to play cornhole and I felt good in the moment. Like, yes. And we make it a big deal. And then, even more so the next day, that's like creating the open door for the brain to be like, oh, now we're paying attention to these things. And then it'll go find more and more and more and more of that instead.
And the work, as it's often called,
Mhm.
is literally doing that repetitively, because
Exactly.
that brain of yours is going to keep pulling you back to that negative. That's the way it's
100%.
been programmed for quite some time. That's why you're in that limited state where you're crushed by debt, or you're crushed by the latest relationship breakup, or you're crushed by a
Yeah.
health issue, or whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
because your brain has basically been trained to believe that's the entire universe. And
Hmm.
so it just keeps returning you to that universe over and over again. So the work is literally recognizing that's going on and then deliberately finding ways to pull yourself out of it, even if it's only for a moment, over
Exactly.
and over and over and over again. That is
Exactly.
the essence of the work.
That's the work. That's the most important things because when we shift things in here inside of ourselves, everything changes.
So tying this back to the whole question of debt or of trying to save money and so forth, like you said earlier, it's very easy for us to fall into the place of saying, I'll never make it. I don't have enough income. I can't put enough money aside. We're talking ourselves out of it just by having those kinds of thoughts. So the
Yes.
challenge to the work is to find ways to say, well, if I can do this for like a month, I can see at least what happens when I accumulate for a month, or whatever rationale you use. You come up and with some rationale to justify just trying it for a while,
Yeah,
because it turns out the most important part of it is building the new habit. And if you can
that's right.
do that that's why people often say a month. Actually, a month isn't long enough to actually build a habit. It really takes 3 to 4 months before it becomes deeply ingrained in your nervous system. But at least with a month, you can see it. You can see a result happening. So
Yeah.
it's not yet a habit, but you can at least see a result. If you can stick with it for 90 to 120 days, it's like your father. Your father did it for what, 5 years, paying off but after 5 years, it was easy to keep paying the 200 bucks a month or whatever it was because he already had the habit. His mind was already wrapped around, well, that's what I do. I put $200 away toward, helping Jody pay off her car loan. And oh, by the way, the car loan got paid off. So I keep putting it away because that's what the habit is.
Yeah, just keep doing it.
So you take advantage of the fact that the same thing that trapped you is the same thing that can untrap you.
Hmm.
The habitual nature of the human mind.
Absolutely. And it always makes me think about what is reality, what is really going on. And if it's simply what we're interpreting is reality, we change the interpretation, just like the saying, if you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. And your whole life does too.
I think episode 4 is in the books. Thank you so much, my friend. Looking forward to do
Thank
this next
you.
time. By the way,
Yes.
just want to remind people if you want your question answered, we spent an entire episode on one question. You want your question answered? Go to the website, moneypodcast.net. There's a form right there. Fill it in or you can actually make a video of yourself asking the question, and we'll include you on an upcoming episode. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all next time here on Money. Want to get your question answered here on the podcast? Just go to moneypodcast.net, fill in the form with either a video or a typed question, and your question may be included on the next episode. Moneypodcast.net. For more on this, listen to the entire podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.